All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode number 68 of Slim DevOps Live. I am co host Peter here from Slim.AI. We are a Series A startup who is focused in the container optimization, container security space. We're looking to help the world remove vulnerabilities from their containers now and forever. This is our Twitch stream, and I'm really excited because today I'm joined by Nnenna, our new developer advocate. Nnenna, how are you doing?
I'm doing really good. Glad to be here.
Yeah, your first time on stream, so that's pretty exciting. Yeah,
That's for sure.
nice. Cool. Well, Nnenna, tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, how did you get into programming? What's been your story? Like, how did you find Slim.AI? Talk to us about your kind of career path. I know you're a software engineer.
Yeah. So before developer advocacy, software engineering is my background. Started teaching myself how to code using free resources like Code
Nice,
Academy,
nice.
free code camp. Those are super awesome. Then eventually got myself into a coding boot camp
Okay,
out here in Boston. So did that for it was about 14 weeks coding boot camp. After that, I got into fintech. So I was at a
nice,
startup. Yeah.
nice. Fintech startup. Like, l-
Yes, yeah. It was pretty exciting, I guess, like being a part of the full stack
mhm,
engineering world as opposed to just front end.
mhm,
Uh, but after that, I got into ed tech,
mhm.
and I was doing a lot of front end and leading some projects for a live events product team.
Cool.
But now I'm here. But
Nice.
yeah.
That's awesome. Do you want to give a shout out to the boot camp? I love hearing about like kind of boot
Oh
camps that are
yes,
really good.
Resilient Coders here in Boston.
Oh,
They're amazing, amazing organization. I think they're also out in Philly too. So.
okay. Awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I think we know the organization, and yeah,
Mhm.
maybe we should get someone from Resilient Coders on stream sometime. That would be cool to hear about like kind of what they're doing and how they do it. That's really neat. Um,
Yeah.
so you've done full stack. You were kind of focused on the front end. Like, what kind of like technologies do you like working in? What's your like kind of go to? If we opened up your VS Code right now, like what language would we see first?
I think you'd see React, JavaScript first, and then Python,
Nice.
Django Python, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So the Node Python kind of world, doing a lot of the front end stuff. Nice. And how did you kind of come to Slim.ai? Like, what's your interest in containers? Is it like, did you work with containers before, or is this kind of all new stuff for you?
Yeah, I would say I would say I worked a lot more with containers at the fintech startup
Hmm.
as opposed to ed tech. But most of what I did was just being aware of the commands to run in order to manage our containers. And then we left more of the super technical things in that area to the DevOps engineers that were on a different team, and some of the cloud ops engineers. So I think the idea was that your general engineer needed to be aware of what things like Docker was and how to leverage it to get certain things done.
Hmm.
But so that's, I'd say, the extent to which I had my experience with that. But with Slim in general, I think part of my interest in Slim is also paired with like developer advocacy in general. And what I was doing in my free time with engineering was writing. I was writing about my experiences, and I was engaging in tech community and going to events, speaking at events, and so I really wanted to see how I could combine all of those interests and to be able to do that while learning something, diving deeper into something like a specialization. And this is a perfect opportunity to do that. And I feel like the container space so far has been super exciting, and it just seems like there's a lot of like potential with where this could go, and I want to be a part of that whole wave.
Nice.
Hmm.
Yeah, certainly the cloud native revolution is upon us, and it's nice to learn
Yeah.
these technologies. You said a funny thing about the like knowing the commands to run for Docker, and I feel like that's like 90% of it. That's like what we always struggle with on this stream. It's like, wait, is this Docker run? Is this like what flag do I put here? I don't remember,
Right.
but yeah, definitely constant struggle. So you got into it kind of through writing, or you got into developer advocacy through writing. I'm curious, like what makes for good technology writing in your mind, and how does that differ from, I don't know, just like blogging or something like that?
Yeah, I would say with writing anything like technical or technical topics or documentation, I think it's about being able to create a story in a way that where you're able to connect with the type of reader that you would have, like developers, just being empathetic. So that's one of the biggest things. I feel like as a developer, I am in a position to where I could be able to speak to that type of audience, and being very concise and succinct
Hmm.
are very big things, I would say, and a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think that's true. Like developers are usually trying to like just get something done, right? You know, they don't need a lot of flowery stuff around it. They just want to make sure it
No
works. They
fluff,
want to understand
right?
it. Yeah. Give them the context, give them the why, and then tell them how to
And
do it. Yeah.
that's the interesting thing with the context, is having that balance of explaining just enough, and being able to cater to potentially sometimes different levels of
Hmm.
engineering and developer experience.
Yeah. So a little bit of a question that occurs to me is that we've been seeing this pivot to supply chain security, and obviously like we're a security company here at Slim.AI, ultimately trying to remove vulnerabilities from containers for developers. I'm curious, in your past, like what's your evolution as a software developer and somebody who is kind of working front end or full stack, like what's been your relationship with security, and how has that sort of like evolved over time, and where do you think that's going? I think that's an interesting question. I'm curious your
My
perspective on it.
relationship with security.
Yeah, like how as a developer were you thinking about security? Was it, a time suck blocker, or was it something that you wanted to make sure you didn't step on any kind of landmines? Like how are you thinking about it as a developer, and has that changed over the past couple years?
That's a good question. I don't know. I guess I would say there's a lot of caution, a lot of tiptoeing,
Hmm.
and relying on people who had like deeper like specialization in that sphere. I remember from like my last job, there was there were so many questions, I would say, about security in general. There's so many questions about handling vulnerabilities,
Hmm.
and there was a bit of fear
Hmm.
around how to manage that. And we couldn't quite solve those problems, I guess, because all the expertise wasn't there, or we're front end
Hmm.
engineers. It's like, what do we do about that?
All right.
And how do we even know how to take a deeper look into that? Um, what was the tool that we used? There were just different like automated tools that we would use to help with that, like
Hmm.
Renovate Bot. I don't know if you've heard of that before, but it helps with the front end builds
Hmm.
and improving, or I guess getting rid of some vulnerabilities. But that was as far as our knowledge went.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
a lot of caution.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Renovate pods. It's one of the update bot kind of things. Is that right? Like it helps you kind of patch updates, and then, you know, presumably if you're patching updates regularly, then, you're closing off. Hopefully the upstream stuff has been fixed, and you're getting the security fixes there. But obviously no guarantees. And yeah, I think your story is not different from a lot of people. Like I mean, I think most developers, given the choice, would be secure and safe, and they don't want to be the one that's responsible for some sort of security incident. But
Yeah.
what's the expectation that you learn and become a security expert at the same time you're becoming a front end development expert? Like there's that trade off and that kind of friction point. So yeah, I think you're in the right place to investigate those issues, because those are some of the challenges that we're trying to solve here at Slim. So
Yeah, I would say. And also that made me wonder, like, what have you been working on lately?
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I've been we've been working on this thing called the automated container hardening. We're gonna have some docs that are publishing to the site, which you've provided some feedback on, and we've been writing. So we've been bulking up the docs here at Slim.AI. And yeah, last week, Big Pod, who works with us, one of our colleagues, awesome guy, was walking me through sort of how to write kind of a generic high level GitHub action. And I think one of the things that we've been talking about is like, right, like security gets easier when you can kind of automate different pieces of it, right? Like whether that's, sort of the updates of different libraries, or whether that's, what we're all about at Slim, which is, automating and removing vulnerabilities from the containers during the CI/CD pipeline, right? So we were looking
Mhm.
at one of our sort of first CI/CD integrations, which is with a GitHub action, which a lot of people use. And so we were just building out the beginning of that. Since then, I've really been working a lot on on learning more about GitHub Actions, learning how our new CLI tool works and can help people automate this process. And yeah, I think that's what we're going to kind of like dive into today, which is pretty cool. Um, I guess one thing, one note I'll make is just for anybody watching, feel free to say hi in chat. If you have questions for Nnenna, please let us know. You can find out a lot more about who we are by going to this URL that's right above my head, Slim.AI. There you can find a link to our Discord channel and drop in there. Nnenna's in there, I'm in there, a bunch of other kind of developers and engineers from the Slim team are in there, as well as a lot of container enthusiasts, and it's a fun place to be. Also, if you're enjoying the content here, please give us a follow. Love to get that. We're 2 away from 500, 2 away. So, get one of your friends to do it, and then you can be the 500th follower. And, that sounds good. But mostly just say hi and let us know what you're thinking about what we're working on. So, yeah, with that, Nnenna, you want to take a look at some of the work that we are doing on this GitHub action, and maybe we can get our
Yes.
hands on some code. All right, cool. That sounds good.
Cool.
I'm actually going to come to this part later. I thought I was going to start with this, but I'll come to this part later. We have some friends coming on with us, but so as I mentioned last time, so we were, this kind of I'll do a quick review of where Big Pod and I got to on this GitHub action. So this, for people who are kind of following along, you can actually come see this GitHub action demo. I'm going to pop it here in chat. We're also going to be building off of a tutorial, which I will share in 1 second, which is found at the Slim.AI GitHub, which I can show as well. I'll pop that into chat. So there's a little bit of a tutorial write-up that our team did. I'm going to go ahead and just go through and like kind of walk through this workflow file, and then we can get into it. So yeah, Nnenna, have you worked with GitHub Actions too much, or is this kind of all new territory for you?
It's a bit newer territory for me, but I'm familiar with the workflows.
Cool. Cool. Yeah, so that is what we're building out is a workflow, and there's a couple workflows in here that a couple of jobs that we're talking about. So as you can see, we kind of struggled at the very end to get the Slim toolkit, which is our open source project, Slim Toolkit, running. So, we probably have a little more debugging to do, but we got our build stage working, which was pretty nice. If we go to the workflow file, we can kind of see just what we did here. And we just set up a very basic, kind of workflow file for the run, which started with a name, so anytime we push new code to this branch, we're going to kick off these jobs. As we know, these jobs are all running on, VMs, but I like to think about them as containers because I like containers. But Big Pod told me last week that he thought they were running on VMs. Maybe someone from the GitHub team can correct us on that. But so we're going to run on Ubuntu because we really like Ubuntu. More on that later. And we take these processes of checking out the code. That's our checkout. We're using a built-in GitHub action here. So GitHub has a bunch of their own actions that you can take advantage of. And then we build our Docker container using just a shell command. Again, we were kind of talking about, 80% of Docker is knowing the Docker command that you need to run. In this case, thankfully, it was pretty simple. What we did then, because we ran into this little bit of an issue, and Horses Say Nay, who I just saw drop into the Discord community, helped us out with this. He had this idea to build it into a tarball because we didn't know what to do. We would have to push this to a registry and then access it in another step, and we didn't want to do that. But he suggested, why don't we just output the container image to a tarball, and then we can access it via the artifact. So we're basically like uploading this to GitHub, and then we download it again. And then with that, so we upload that, and then we have this stage which is called Slim, which is where we're going to run the Slim Toolkit command. First, we're going to download the Slim Toolkit CLI, and then we're going to go ahead and download the tarball, and we're going to we are inserting some debugging steps here that we didn't get to towards the very end there. But then we get the Slim CLI here, and we run that, to kind of build our Slim container. So this is just using our open source project, and it's a pretty basic sort of thing that we would do. I should note and take a step back that the app that we have running in this container is just a very, your most basic Node Express app, something that you have probably seen and written in tutorials
Oh
600
yeah,
times. Yeah.
too many times.
Yeah, just a good old hello world example. And then similarly, our Docker file, okay, it's a little more built out, but it's very much a hello world, kind of Docker file where we use Yarn to install any dependencies that we have, and we just run this server. We do follow some container best practices here, like running the container as the node user as opposed to the root user, but we're not doing anything too fancy in this. So where were we trying to get to? Well, ultimately what we want to do is use the new Slim CLI tool to run this for us. And let me explain a little bit about what I mean by that. So in the second repo that I highlighted here, we have a really deep example built by Ivan and Mitranjay on our team. Mitranjay is awesome. He's put a ton of work into this. And they've done this entire write-up about how you use our own Slim SaaS CLI tool, which is different than our open source tool, to walk through and do this process where you're going to get these types of results with this application. So you're going to go from something like a 1 gigabyte container down to a 90 megabyte container. And you can do it automatically, and you can put it in your CI/CD system through something like a GitHub action. And that's what this repo does. So our goal is to kind of like get to this place. We call this process instrument profile and harden, or instrument observe and harden. So basically what this does is it, adds the Slim sensor, this sort of like special intelligence collection system that we've built to the image, so to that Docker file we were just looking at. And then it as the container runs, you basically get a bunch of signals from it as you exercise it. So in our case, it would only be hello world. We'd hit the browser or curl it and do hello world and get that response. But when that response happens, right, like in the container, a lot of stuff is happening. The node server.js is firing up and loading any kind of node dependencies that are there. The Ubuntu operating system that we've built this on top of, or the Debian operating system that we've built this on top of, is calling what it needs for the low-level kernel stuff to work. Maybe we're using something like DNS or various other compilers in order to make this stuff run. Those are all happening, and that's what the Slim sensor is looking at, right? It collects all that information and it sends it back to our SaaS platform. So you can do some of this stuff locally with the Slim Toolkit open source project, but there's a lot of advantages to doing this through our SaaS platform. And that's what this is doing. So it does it via the SaaS platform, and then what it pushes back is this hardened image, which again, we kind of saw the results, which is it's going to remove any files, libraries, and dependencies that are not needed for production. And when it does that, it removes a lot of the vulnerabilities. Is that all tracking? I know you've been learning a lot about the Slim platform, but does that make sense as a Node developer? Do you have other questions about what's happening? I'm kind of curious how this has all been landing in your first couple weeks here on the job.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I saw that it was a YAML file that was being used.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so mhm.
Yeah, that's the workflow file is in a YAML file. Obviously, kind of a DevOps specialty is to write a lot of YAML. So it's not my favorite thing to write stuff in because I can never remember how many indents I need and all that kind of stuff. Have you worked in YAML a whole lot?
I've had to, and I just try to stay away, to be honest.
I think spoken like a true developer. but yeah, so this is just really the hardened YAML here that you can find in the let me find the actual one in this repo. So they have a couple steps in their kind of prescribed workflow for this, and this is what we were kind of building towards. So they have a build, they have a harden, and they have a scan. And these are some of the things that you can do with the Slim platform. You can build a container, you can harden it using our hardening system that we've been describing, and then you can run a vulnerability scan against it, against really any container. So they've split that up into 3, and each of these YAML files have sort of different steps and different jobs that they're running. So yeah, we define those in YAML. Hopefully, there's not too much complicated YAML that we need to do here. But yeah, so we can kind of read through and see what they're doing there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a necessary evil that you have to write YAML if you're going to work on kind of CI/CD type systems. I think if you're like a Kubernetes developer, it's just like you probably speak in YAML. I don't know what that would sound like, but uh,
Think we'll sleep in YAML.
yeah, so you dream in YAML. That's like a Philip K. Dick novel. Um, hey, Samir, how's it going? Samir just joined the chat, and yeah, this is actually like a really great time. It's great to see Samir here, and I'll take a minute, Samir. So what we're doing is we're walking through some GitHub action examples. Yeah, and we're having fun. Nnenna, who's joining us, is our new developer advocate. So I'm kind of showing her sort of what Primosh and I were doing on the last stream, where we're building out this GitHub action that's going to use the Slim platform in order to harden your containers. So that's what we've been working on. There's a lot of different components. Last week, we just built out a very basic GitHub action. And then now we're looking at sort of our target state GitHub action. And we were talking about how, as sort of developers and people who came to development through Node and Python, YAML always feels a little strange. It's not a native language for us, maybe, but yeah. So, if you have questions as we go on, that's great. And I'll take this opportunity actually to say that for other people that are watching, mark your calendars. Samir is actually going to be joining us with his colleague Valentin next week on the stream. And we will be talking about the Ubuntu Chisel project, really awesome project. Samir, oh my God, Mom, I'm on TV. Yes, you're on TV. You're famous. Um, all of the 498 followers of Slim.AI, soon to be 500, tell your friends, are gonna come see. And yeah, it's gonna be really great. I'm so looking forward to that. I can't say how excited I am for that one. I haven't had a chance to dive too deeply with Ubuntu Chisel, and I think it's like a really, really cool technology that's coming, and I think people will really, really like it. So mark your calendars, 3 p.m. Thursday next week, 3 p.m. Eastern, and we'll get going there. So
I haven't looked into that project yet, but I need to. And I'm going to spam everyone about joining in on that
yeah,
next week.
awesome. Yeah, that sounds good. And yeah, I know Samir, you're in the Discord, so if you have like a pre-read or if you have like some stuff that you want to share with people, feel free to make some notes there. We'll obviously set up the event in the Discord, probably right after this show, and people will know all about it. So okay, great, awesome.
Awesome.
Cool. So we'll be doing some Ubuntu stuff next week. As we were showing in our GitHub Action demo, we're building all of this stuff on Ubuntu because we're big fans of Ubuntu and Canonical. I want to kind of take a moment, and so I thought maybe what we would do for this stream, Nnenna, if it makes sense, is just kind of like walk through the Slim CLI tool, which is new and it's been kind of getting improved. We've had it for a little while. Martin and I demoed it like way back when, but it's had so much work on it that I feel like it's like a brand new tool, and it's going to be really critical to kind of like getting to this version of what we're doing. Oh, and our colleague Aisha just dropped in and she says, "Yay, go Nnenna!" So, a lot of support here, Nnenna, for you. But you can see in a lot of these commands, maybe if I can find I think it's probably in the harden step. If we just kind of like look through what this is doing, it's using a thing. This is a little shorthand we use called Slim Cuddle, which is an action that our team has put out there. But this is based on the Slim CLI, which has a lot of ways of interacting with the APIs in the Slim SaaS platform. And so that's going to be really critical and crucial to the understanding. And I think it's also just a really good tool that's like ready for people to kind of kick the tires on it. So what do you say we go look through kind of the Slim CLI and see what that looks like and what it can do? Does that make sense?
Yeah, let's do that.
Cool. All right. So awesome. And if people have questions again in chat, drop in, ask questions, ask what you can do, follow along at home if you want to, give us a follow, send it to your friends. So if you're in the Slim in the Slim platform, a lot of people probably know this interface now because we share it quite a lot. This is, I've logged into the platform and I have my kind of like drop down menu here, and you can see I have a couple different like organizations. We have this notion of organizations, which is just like your team, a way for you to kind of like organize your team. So we have one for the Slim Growth team. We have a few others that we've worked on. But one of the main things here is this ability to download the Slim CLI here. And, with this, you'll get some instructions. I'm not going to do it because one of the things about the Slim CLI, actually, what, I'll do this. I've already installed it. So, I won't go through and reinstall it, but there's always new versions coming out. So it's kind of always good to like keep an eye on what new versions are coming out. I'm pretty sure I've got the most recent version. Um, but I'm going to kick over to kind of my IDE window, and this is going to be, kind of a new fun thing that we're doing. So I'll make this a little bigger for people so they can see it, hopefully.
So you already have it installed. And if
Yeah.
you were to install it, you would have run a curl command or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. If you go to this page, there's a bunch of kind of download instructions and how you can, run a curl to install it. We actually do you the favor of configuring it with your own API key. So that's just why I'm not going to that screen right now. But yeah, you would get these kind of commands to both download the CLI
Yeah.
tool and then install it. And then with the installation, you run a command called slimconfig and add your API token. And with that, you're connected to the platform and you're kind of working. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm also noticing that I think maybe my console is not kind of doing what I want it to do. So let me just kind of come back here for a second. I'm just going to try to sort of get a reset on the IDE window while we chat. And while we do that, I'll make sure. So if people have questions in chat, feel free to demo crash. Now this happens to me sometimes, Samir. I don't think it'll happen next week because you'll be sharing your own, but it only happens with me on OBS where, uh, like and it only happens in terminal, that it freezes. So if people have ideas for me on how I can fix this on my own terminal, I am all ears. But I think I'll be able to do it pretty quickly here. So let me just do this, and we'll do this, and hopefully this just kind of brings it back. OBS portable ZSH. Cool. Okay. All right, and then I'm gonna come over here, and so yeah, if people have questions while we're chatting, we can go from there. There's always a few technical difficulties as we get into this. I'm not quite the streaming wizard that my colleague Martin was, so here we are. Let me
We
see
could
if
only
this works. Yeah, yeah, exactly. All right, so here we go. Now we're live. See, look, I fixed it. Smear, nothing to worry about. On the fly demos. I even remembered to use studio mode, so the production value is great. So, yeah, we talked with Valentin about a demo crash. You do have to always pray to the demo gods, right? You have to, go, and I don't know if your thing is incense or if it's just like, saying a little, whatever your religious language is, all of that. But the demo gods are fickle, and you have to be really cautious about, appeasing them when you're doing a live demo. So, uh,
they are, and they are for other people too. So I usually pray for others and not
yes. Oh,
represent.
wow.
Jump
Nina,
out here. Got to share the love.
Nina, you are like way nicer than I am. So, like, awesome. I can't say that I've ever done that before, but I will start doing it now. I have New Year's resolution to be a better person. I'm going to pray for Samir and Valentin for next week, that their demo goes splendidly and that I don't mess it up for them. I think they have the advantage of knowing that if it messes up, it's probably my fault. So that's, they at least have me to blame. Um, so cool. So quickly, I've already set this up. I've already installed this. I've already set it up. I can just type in Slim to what I'm running here and I get a bunch of these commands and, oh, I made this too big. There is this awesome little Cody ASCII art that our team did, which I think people will like. Maybe if Grace is watching, she can turn this into a sticker for us over time. I think my colleague Joe did that. But, I get a bunch of information, like which version I'm running. Like I said, we're releasing new versions of this all the time with updates and stuff like that. So make sure you're running the latest one. You have a little bit of a support email here for us. Of course, you can always drop into our Discord channel, which is in the link right above my head at Slim.AI. But then you get all these commands and these lists, right? So a few of these are going to look very similar to what we have on the Slim platform, such as collections, image, kind of status. These are all things that are generally, you can kind of find in the Slim platform. I know we've looked at collections a ton and all that kind of stuff. You also have a few kind of helper things like config and account. But there's sort of these new things that they've been adding, like generate profile for image instrumentation, upload instrument artifacts, just instrument, harden, and harden, right? And so like harden is our actual like final step here. That's what we're trying to get to, right? We're trying to get to this hardened container. Um, and so you can kind of see this like there's these new capabilities that are in the CLI tool. They are now in the SaaS as well, but what we've shown to date is this ability to just slim containers or harden containers via sort of like a click-through thing in the SaaS. And so this is now a new tool that people who prefer the command line or are working locally or need to work in CI/CD through a workflow document that runs in a VM or a container, they can use this. So it's really awesome. It's really, really cool. And we're like very, very excited about it. There's also some sort of like experimental features in here, like runtime analysis report, or no, sorry, that's not a command. That's there are some ways to use this in Kubernetes as well, which is going to be way too far over in YAML land for Nnenna and I to do. So we'll have to have our colleague Ivan on to help us with that, and he promised that he would come show us that. Maybe Mitranjay can come too. So cool. So I've got my Slim thing set up. I think like the first thing I'm going to do is just like I know about collections. And one thing is just like like any good developer experience, you can just ask for help commands in this CLI tool and come through it. So okay, so I typed Slim collections help, and then I get okay, I can add a new collection, I can list collections, I can remove one. Yeah, all the sort of CRUD features that you would normally expect. There's some notions around pinning. I won't get too deep into that, but we can talk about what that means. It's basically like okay, I have version 12345 and I want to make sure that's the image that I use. I can pin that, so even if there's like an updated version for that same container tag, you're still using the same SHA-ID. That's something that most of our customers, design partners ask for because they don't want to change containers until they make a specific change to a container lest
Yeah.
something break in their infrastructure. Right, makes sense.
Right.
This thing has this really cool feature too. We were talking a little bit about our sort of like, I won't call it, it's not hatred, we don't hate anything, our distaste for YAML. And this really cool feature that if you add your containers to a collection via the Slim platform, this will actually auto-generate a Docker Compose file for you, which is written in YAML. So, we've done these examples, right, where you have a node application image, a Postgres database container, maybe an Nginx reverse proxy or ingress type container. And what you can do with this is you just put all of those three containers into a collection, and then you run this command and you get a Docker Compose file that you can just start with. You can run Docker Compose up on it and it just works.
Awesome.
Yeah, so it saves people a lot of time. We also can save the compose file for you in our cloud and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of cool stuff, a lot of cool kind of like hidden features in this CLI tool that people can kind of explore and play around with. I think yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say I see a few like commands that are like I recognize, so it's
Mm-hmm.
good that there are for developers we're used to what is that ls remove
Yeah.
status images. It's good that there's some consistency there.
Yeah, yeah. I think they've made a lot of really good intentional choices. I think Joe on our team, who's been on stream here a bunch, was sort of the first one that worked on it. Obviously, Kyle and a lot of our developer engineers really thinking about the developer experience here. And yeah, you can kind of see it's a little bit of like a hybrid between like a Linux command line system, which most people would be familiar with, Ubuntu and Debian, and sort of the Docker commands that we were talking about
Yeah,
before, right? Like
that's,
listing
yeah.
images, doing ls, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I agree. I think it's cool. And yeah, I kind of took it for granted actually. I was just going to run slim collections ls, and it's just very natural. It's very like yeah, how else would you list something? I want to see all of the images that I have in my collections. I actually have quite a few of them because I am like one of the owners of some of our kind of platform collections. But you know, you can see here you can get these like collection IDs. You know, this is all in JSON files, so you can kind of go through and see what all of them are, and then you know, the container name and you know, any kind of categorization we have about it. Um, but yeah, so I think I'm wondering if there's an easier way for me to kind of find a specific container. Maybe Slim collections. I'm gonna go back to the help screen here and just see if I can uh, specifically target a collection, because then I can actually show that for a small collection. Some of these big platform collections are a little too big to be like useful. Um, list collections help. So image value filter with an image. Oh, okay, cool. So I can actually, I'm not too sure how this works, but I could actually like give it an image and say, give me all the collections that have this image in it, which is like, that's pretty cool. So like, give me all the images that have no latest in it or something like that. Um, entity name tag. Let me see if I can just get that to work. I actually don't know. I haven't, we're tempting the demo gods here, Samir, because we didn't actually try this in our walkthrough. So um, I'm just kind of curious if it works. What does that do? Oh, okay. All right. I guess we can't do that. So I'm gonna go away. I'm not gonna tempt the demo gods more. Um, oh, all right. Hey, we hit our follower goal. 500 followers. Yay!
Awesome.
Hey, whoever was the 500 follower, say hi. First of all, hope you will at least. Ping us in chat. Let us know who you are. Would love to hear from you. And if you would like a Slim.AI t-shirt or a set of stickers or any kind of swag, we have a lot of great swag. Drop into our Discord up here at Slim.AI. You'll find a link to our Discord. Maybe one of my colleagues can drop it in chat as well. And drop in and let us know who you were, and we'll get you over some swag like these awesome Slim.AI t-shirts that we have, or beanies, socks, all kinds of good stuff. That's exciting. I'm so happy. Like, it's kind of crazy for me to think that we would get to 500 followers on Twitch. I guess we're doing something well. So awesome. Nice. Hey Ralph, how's it going? Nice. Good to see you. So all right, we've got Ralph and Rack in chat here. So looks like Lindsay was trying to give that link, but maybe we got to do some moderation settings here. I'll see if I can grab it while we're talking.
I didn't even realize you were wearing this shirt. Now I feel
there's always there's always subtle swag happening. Yeah, I don't know why exclamation point Discord doesn't work. It did before, so let me. Might have some debugging of our system to work on here. So here, I'll just pop it in chat. So I think it does come up through Stream Elements every once in a while, so people can also pay attention to it. Awesome. So yeah, Ralph, nice to connect with you. And if you want to you know, learn more about us, drop into Discord. If you want a Slim t-shirt, give us a shout out and say hi. But thanks for being our 500 follower. It really means a lot to us. Really, 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 really does. So cool. All right. So we have collections. We have a few other things that we can do in the Slim. I'm just going to kind of go back to the beginning. You know, in the Slim tool, it's like Slim image, like you mentioned. So this is sort of for image management. You know, let me try this. Slim image, get images. And these will be kind of all of the different images that I have. In this case, I only have one image in this kind of demo container that I have, which is this Slim demo container that we've been sort of working on as part of this stream. But now I can see, okay, I've got a few other informations here. One important thing is this connector. So we talk a little bit about connectors on stream. Connectors are how you pull private images or authenticated registries into the Slim platform. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. So if I go back over to the Slim platform, and I have this, yeah, cool. I have this, you know, sort of set of connected registries. I've done a lot for this, this particular account, but I have a lot of stuff in Docker Hub. So these are all my containers that we're constantly working on in Docker Hub. I have one connected for my ECR as well. And if you come here and you configure one of these connectors that we have, um, you can use that to create an authenticated connection to any of these platforms. And once you have that connector set up, you can pull those images in. You can also push back to those images. So, kind of an important feature and one that, is like a critical step to getting successful on our platform. Kind of back in the um, command line, you can see that, okay, like I've got this connector ID and I'm just going to go ahead and use that. So I'll need that at different times. What else do I have in here? So let me do, because we are going to get towards this like instrument command. And here you can see like, whoa, a lot of flags, right? But Slim instrument is produce a container image instrumented with runtime analysis tools, aka the sensors. So this is what we were looking at in the GitHub repo. This is kind of that instrument phase. And this is where we add, sort of how people would get the sensors in a local environment or in a CI/CD environment. You can always run this in the Slim SaaS platform, but we've had a lot of people ask us to be able to like run their own test suites against a particular container, especially in CI/CD. You want to make sure the slimmed container is working the same way the original one did. That makes sense.
Right.
Actually running your full test suite through the slimming process makes your hardened container better. It can remove actually more stuff from it and make sure that it is like going to be fully functional when it's done. So better testing equals better slimming equals better security. I just made that up, but that sounds like a really good marketing phrase.
I'm gonna write that down somewhere, and
Yeah.
then I'm gonna claim it.
All right. You got it. Show up in the next docs that we publish, which you're working on right now. I know. All right, cool. So we've kind of made our way through this. As you can see, there's a lot of different flags in here, which we'll get into once we start building out the GitHub action the way that Yvonne and Mitranjay want us to do. And then, again, this kind of sequential process that we're going to run tells us that we want to instrument the container first, and then we're going to observe it, and then we're going to harden it. So, if we look at what harden does, oops, Slim harden. Oh, right, because I didn't type in help. The hardening process is, again, running that, kind of like, okay, I'm going to create a functionally equivalent container on the Slim website or via the Slim SaaS. But I need to know a bunch of other information about it. So this instrumented image has collected all of that intelligence for us. I might want to know the connector, which we were looking at, right? Because if I want to push this thing back up to Docker Hub or back up to, ECR or something like that, right? I'm going to want to give that value. We can tell it to pull the hardened image into the local Docker. So that's kind of nice, right? Okay, create the hardened image and then pull it. And there's these timeout values that can be pretty important. Containers just tend to be large. The process can take a little bit of time. So certainly when we run into issues, a lot of times it's just because of kind of bad timeouts or something's just taking too long. But yeah, so those are the things. So those are the kind of commands that we're going to do, and that's how we're going to do it in the GitHub action that we're building out. I think we could probably try to run this locally if we wanted to, maybe as a next step, just to kind of do some local testing and say like, okay, can we instrument, test, and harden before we even get to the GitHub action phase and make sure that our container works. So maybe that's something that we could do next time. But I think we're in a pretty good shape right now. We've got the Slim CLI. We know how it works. If we bounce back over to this example repo that we're going to look at, we can kind of go into the hardening step and say like, okay, now I really understand what instrumenting means. Let me see what they're doing in this workflow file. And okay, I've got this example. It's building on Ubuntu latest. Woohoo, Samir. Not Ubuntu Chisel, but I don't know. Maybe we could build container images on Ubuntu Chisel. I don't know. We'll learn next week. Samir will tell us. So we go through, it needs the harden workflow, because it uses that. That's the instrumentation process. Oh, because it does that next. And then we can see that there's some things that it's doing. So it's pulling an image from the GitHub container registry. So we need
Yeah.
some secrets set up ahead of that. Um, oh, and you know what? Actually, this one is just using the sorry, this is instrument, right? Yeah. Let me take a look. Oh, these are the jobs within the instrument container. Got it. Got it. Got it. Sorry, I'm still a little new to GitHub
You just, what
workflows
did you
myself.
just run? Is that the Slim? Okay. Oh, I see.
Yeah, so actually what's happening in this is while we spend all that time in the Slim CLI, so kind of similar to if people were caught the stream last week, um, what BigPod and I did, there is there is an action for Docker stuff. You know, there's all these actions that GitHub has created, and you can use all these actions in your workflows, right? So that's kind of the relationship. You know, and here, let me just find one that we're using. This one is the generic GitHub action for checking out a piece of code, right? That's all this thing does. Checks out code, right?
Makes
Here's actually
sense.
one of the Docker actions, right? So you can tell it's an action because it has this like name/name and then an at and the version.
Yeah.
Um, so this is actually like logging into our Docker repo so that we can pull images that we want, or we can, you know, we can do something with that. No, actually, I'm wrong. That is actually using the Docker action. It's confusing. Uses the Docker action to log into the GitHub container registry um, using these credentials, but it's still a container connection. So there we go. That makes sense. Um,
Well, it's cool that there's a name there for describing what it does.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, log into container registry. I just saw Docker and I assumed it was Docker Hub, but they're actually doing something kind of clever here, which is they use that Docker functionality. The Docker login would be the command line for that. Um, but they use that functionality, but then they authenticate to GitHub container
Okay.
registry. Um,
Nice.
yeah. The point I was making, and this is actually a good example here, right? Like last week, we started just kind of from this mindset of like, okay, we're at the command line and we're writing shell commands, right? So I know how to do Docker login, right? Docker login, you know, my credentials, right? Okay, cool. I know how to do Docker pull, you know, my image, right? But in GitHub Actions, you actually don't even need to do that. And maybe I guess the idea is that it's maybe a little brittle if you do that. If something changes with the command line tool, then you know your flags might not work or whatever.
Yeah.
In this case, you know you have this action that you can just pull, and then it's up to whoever the maintainer of this is to make sure that it continues to work. And so that's kind of cool. So the the meta point I was making is that when we look at the steps that are happening in this harden job, we're not actually running things from the command line um, per se. We're using this action called GitHub Actions slash Slim Cuddle, which our team has created. And I'll double check and see if it's public. If not, it's probably going to be public soon. But so we have our own action, which under the hood is going to run the Slim command line tool. But we've just kind of done that like convenience feature for people so they don't have to do a lot of understanding of the command line tool and they don't have to keep up to date with all of the changes that are going to be in there. We'll do that for them. So Samir says, Rockcraft also have a GitHub action. Oh, okay, cool. Rockcraft does. Well, hey, if you guys want to show that next week, that's awesome. Rockcraft is part of the Ubuntu Chisel project, I believe. So that's really cool. Maybe we can look at that, or maybe we can even use it. And then Samir says you can do Docker login on an Azure repo, for example. Yeah, that's kind of what we were saying. So Docker login, you can use anything, Google, very similar to our connectors on the Slim platform that we were showing before. So okay, cool. So we're at about an hour. I don't want the stream to go too long. I think we got to a good kind of stopping place. I'll kind of bring us back here. I think our homework, Nnenna, should we choose to accept it, um, is we want to go kind of like through the workflow document and try to implement the Slim Cuddle. But I think before we do that on stream, we should try to get instrumentation and hardening working just with the command line. You know, just see if we can get the command line working. We wouldn't put that into kind of like infrastructure as code and all that kind of stuff, but it'll give us a lot of insights as to what's happening in the process and how we do it. So I think that's our homework. Do that first, and then we'll see if we can build out this example. Does that make
That sounds like,
sense? Yeah.
yep, that sounds good. That'll be fun to go through.
Cool. Well, that is great. And I will say we actually give ourselves a couple of weeks on that because, as we've been saying, next week, again, we have Valentin and Samir joining us from the Chisel Rockcraft project from Canonical. Canonical is obviously the company behind Ubuntu. Most of our viewers know that already. But yeah, so mark your calendars. It'll be 3 p.m. next week. We're doing a dry rum to appease the demo gods. That's sort of like our first ritual, so I'm sure it will go off flawlessly. Knock on wood. There's wood here. But if not, Nnenna and I will be here to follow along and help. And I promise that I will try to iron out all the audio issues before we get into it, because that's constantly my problem. But yeah, so we'll be doing that. And then, I think we'll be back to our kind of regularly scheduled program the following week, working on some of the CI/CD stuff. Going into March, we have like a really, really exciting lineup of people coming. So we're going to have David Flanagan from Raw Code, the Raw Code Academy. If you don't know Raw Code Academy, you should. He's done some webinars with us in the past, but he's going to come on stream and share some stuff he's been playing around with for CI/CD. He's a big DevOps guy. And then later on in March, I believe the 23rd, we're going to have Nuno Di Carmo. Captain Corsair is his nickname, and he is the lead developer advocate for Rancher, SUSE Rancher Desktop. So he's going to be talking to us about Windows containers. So, we'll get to see sort of how things work on the Windows side of the house, and that'll be pretty fun. I haven't messed around with Rancher Desktop too much. That's like a new, I don't know how new it is. I don't think it's new, but, it's been kind of like this trending Docker desktop alternative. So it'll be curious to see what they're doing and how they're looking at it. Yeah. So.
And that'll be with the Windows machine.
Yeah, it's very specific to Windows. I'll have to ask not Valentin, that's who I'm looking at right now. Nuno, sort of how it works, what the parameters are, what the use cases are that it's good for. But he's really lively and a very exciting streamer. So I'll try to check out his channel before we go over there. So that's kind of what our March looks like, Nnenna. We're going to be busy. So
I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. It seems like a lot of things to learn along the way. So definitely looking forward to it. It's going to be good.
Okay. Awesome. Well, again, thank you for everybody who has given us a follow, shared us with your friends, dropped into our Discord community, given us feedback. Really enjoyed the stream today. Going to get deeper into some of this technology in the next couple of weeks. And please join us again next week to see Samir and Valentin. Until then, you can find me at PSVan on Twitter or at PSV in the Slim.AI Discord. Again, link above my head or in chat. Nnenna, where can people find you?
Yes, on Twitter, I'm Nnenna Hacks. So that's hacking, like, what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And where else am I on? I think on Discord, I'm the same thing, Nnenna Hacks. Okay. I have to double check. So,
cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Amazing. Yeah. Aisha's saying milestone stream, Nnenna plus 500 subs. Samir says, "Oh, Mr. Robot." I don't know if I understand that. I'm not sure if I'm not a big Mr. Robot guy, so maybe I need to understand that one a little better. But Samir, maybe let us know what you mean with Mr. Robot, or maybe we'll do a Mr. The series. Okay. Yeah, maybe we'll do a Mr. Robot themed series at some point. That's with like the hoodie, right? The guy with the hoodie and all that.
I think so.
Okay. All right. I might be losing some nerd credential here by not knowing Mr. Robot well enough. So Samir, you can give me some flack for this next week for not knowing Mr. Robot well enough, the hacking side of Mr. Robot. I guess it's a show about hackers. That makes sense. All right.
Sounds like it is.
Yeah.
We'll say it is.
Yeah, I think it is. I'm 99% sure it is. So, all right. Well, awesome. Well, sounds good, everybody. Thank you so much. And we will talk to you very, very soon. So, signing off for now. Talk to you soon. Oh, I need to do the signing off.